Pretzel.
Pretzel.
Prevail.
Prevail.
The economic conditions which prevail in England and Wales.
I admired the creativity which prevailed among the young writers.
Justice will prevail. He considered lying, but then common sense prevailed.
Your inner strength will enable you to prevail over life's obstacles. She prevailed upon her father to say nothing. She prevailed upon her father to say nothing.
Prevailing. Prevailing.
The prevailing mood of public opinion remained hostile.
The prevailing economic conditions in Northern Ireland.
Prevalence.
Prevalence.
The prevalence of deafness in older age groups.
Prevalent.
Prevalent.
Solvent abuse is especially prevalent among younger teenagers.
The prevalent belief in astrology.
Prevaricate.
Prevaricate.
I'm not sure he prevaricated.
Prevent.
Prevent.
The rules are intended to prevent accidents. His back injury may prevent him from playing in tomorrow's game. His back injury may prevent him from playing in tomorrow's game.
We were prevented from entering the site.
Wrap small ornaments in paper to prevent them being damaged.
Preventable diseases.
Every one of these deaths is preventable.
Preventative.
Preventative.
Preventative measures.
Prevention.
Prevention.
Educating new drivers is important for the prevention of accidents.
Effective crime prevention must be our main goal. A fire prevention officer. You know what they say, prevention is better than cure.
Prevention. Preventive.
Preventive.
Preventive health programs.
While travelling abroad, take preventive measures to avoid illness.
Preventive detention.
Preventive detention.
Preventive medicine.
Preventive medicine.
Pre-verbal.
Pre-verbal.
The pre-verbal stages.
Preview.
Preview.
A sneak preview of the new fashions for autumn.
The press preview of the show.
Journalists will be able to preview the exhibition tomorrow.
The band will preview their new album on the 2nd of March.
Previous.
Previous.
I've met him before on 2 previous occasions. She has 2 children from a previous marriage.
Do you have any previous experience of this type of work?
The lawyer told the judge that Kennedy had no previous convictions.
I had met them the previous day.
As we said in the previous chapter,
The trees had been planted by the previous owner.
There were almost no women MPs previous to 1945.
Previously.
Previously.
almost half the group had previously been heavy smokers.
6 months previously, he had smashed up his car. 6 months previously, he had smashed up his car.
Pre-war.
Pre-war.
Pre-war Britain.
Prey.
Prey.
A tiger stalking its prey.
Street children in this part of the world often fall prey to drug dealers.
They are prey to nameless fears.
He was easy prey for the 2 con men who called at his house.
Fish at the surface of the water are easy prey for eagles. Cats prey on birds and mice.
Religious cults that specialize in preying on young people.
The accident has been preying on my mind all week.
Prezi.
Prezi.
Price.
Price.
The price of fuel keeps going up. We agreed a price for the bike. Supermarkets often offer you 2 products for the price of 1. He's never at home, but that's the price of success.
The awful boat journey was a small price to pay for freedom.
They may pay a high price for their few years of glory. The country will pay a heavy price for the government's failure.
She was finally made senior executive, but at what price?
I bought these jeans at half price in the sale.
You can get goat cheese at the local delicatessen. At a price. She was determined to have a child at any price.
Sorry, that painting's not for sale at any price.
You can't put a price on what a mother does for her children.
What price progress? What price progress?
A reasonably priced apartment.
Tickets are priced at £75 each.
We spent Saturday morning pricing microwaves.
Price control.
Price control.
Price fixing.
Price fixing.
Price index.
Price index.
Priceless.
Priceless.
Priceless antiques. The ability to motivate people is a priceless asset.
The look on his face was priceless.
Price list.
Price list.
Price support.
Price support.
Price tag.
Price tag.
It's difficult to put a price tag on such a project.
Price war.
Price war.
Pricey.
Pricey.
The clothes are beautiful but very pricey.
Pricing.
Pricing.
A competitive pricing policy.
Prick.
Prick.
Prick the sausages before you grill them. She had pricked her finger on a rose thorn.
Angry tears pricked her eyes.
A curious pricking sensation.
Her conscience pricked her as she told the lie.
The rabbit stopped suddenly, pricking up its ears.
Jay pricked up his ears when I mentioned a vacation.
I didn't feel the prick of the needle.
Give the sausages a prick.
She felt a prick of resentment when she saw them together.
Prickle.
Prickle.
She felt a prickle of fear as she realized that she was alone.
A cold breeze prickled his face.
His hair prickled my neck.
He felt sweat prickle on his forehead.
Her skin was prickling uncomfortably.
She felt her eyes prickle. It was awful, she whispered. My eyes prickled with tears.
The thought of meeting him made her prickle with excitement.
She felt herself prickle at his tone of voice.
Prickly.
Prickly.
A plant with prickly leaves. His skin felt painful and prickly.
The base of my neck was prickly with sweat.
A prickly woolen sweater.
She was prickly and sharp with me.
As she got older, she became more prickly and forgetful.
We finally turned to the prickly question of who was going to pay.
Prickly heat.
Prickly heat.
Prickly pear.
Prickly pear.
Pricey.
Pricey.
Pride.
Pride.
He wore medals with pride.
He takes great pride in his children's achievements.
The people have a sense of pride in their community.
His heart swelled with pride when his daughter came in.
She felt a glow of pride when her name was announced for the prize.
Success in sport is a source of national pride. Success in sport is a source of national pride.
It hurt his pride when his wife left him.
I think that getting a job would give him his pride back.
She didn't try to hide her anger and injured pride.
It's a matter of pride for some men that their wives don't have to work.
His pride wouldn't allow him to ask for help.
She ought to swallow her pride and call him.
You should take more pride in your work.
She took great pride in her appearance.
His garden is his pride and joy. Wigan's rugby team was the pride of the town.
A beautiful Japanese sword that is the pride of our collection.
A large photograph of the children had pride of place on the sitting room wall.
A young lion had strayed some distance from the pride. A restaurant that prides itself on speed of service.
She prides herself on being a good listener.
Priest.
Priest.
Priestess.
Priestess.
Priesthood.
Priesthood.
He is celebrating 30 years in the priesthood.
There has been a decline in the number of people joining the priesthood. There has been a decline in the number of people joining the priesthood. An attempt to reduce the influence of priesthood in the country. Priestly.
Priestly.
Priestly robes.
Prig.
Prig.
Don't be such a prig. It's only a bit of harmless fun.
A rather priggish, old-fashioned man.
Prim.
Prim.
She looked prim and nervous in her best hat and coat.
A very prim and proper young lady.
A prim suit.
Prima ballerina.
Prima ballerina.
Primacy.
Primacy.
The primacy of the family.
We must give primacy to education.
Prima donna.
Prima donna.
In my view, football players are a bunch of overpaid prima donnas.
Primeval.
Primeval.
Prima facie.
Prima facie.
Prima facie evidence.
A prima facie case of professional misconduct.
Primal.
Primal.
A primal fear of the unknown.
Primarily. Primarily.
The advertisement is aimed primarily at children.
Primary.
Primary.
Our primary concern is to provide the refugees with food and healthcare. Many of the villagers rely on fishing as their primary source of income. Their primary objective is to make money.
Personal safety is of primary importance.
A primary teacher.
Primary education.
Teaching at primary level.
A primary tumour.
Counselling was given as a primary therapy for depression.
Primary care.
Primary care.
A primary care physician.
Primary colour.
Primary color.
Primary election.
Primary election.
Primary health care.
Primary health care.
Primary school.
Primary school.
Primary source.
Primary source.
Primary stress.
Primary stress.
Primate.
Primate.
Prime.
Prime.
Smoking is the prime cause of lung disease.
Our prime concern is providing jobs for all young school leavers.
He was named as the prime suspect in the murder investigation. Good management is of prime importance in business.
Prime rib of beef.
Prime agricultural land.
The hotel is in a prime location overlooking the valley.
The school is a prime candidate for closure.
Old people are a prime target for thieves.
Blakey Hall is a prime example of a 19th century building.
She's now 40 and still in her prime.
He is now past his prime. A man in the prime of life.
A young singer who was tragically cut off in her prime.
Did you prime her with what to say? He had a shower and primed himself for action.
He had been primed to say nothing about it.
All metal surfaces will have to be primed.
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister.
The British Prime Minister.
He first became Prime Minister in 1982.
The Prime Minister of Turkey.
Prime Mover.
Prime Mover.
He was a prime mover in the bid to get better pay for West Indian cricketers.
She was a prime mover of social change in the 19th century.
Prime number.
Prime number.
Primer.
Primer.
A primer on Italian wines. A primer of good management techniques.
Prime rate.
Prime time.
Prime time.
A primetime entertainment program.
Primetime television.
Primetime audiences.
A speech that was broadcast live during prime time.
Prime time.
Prime time.
A primetime entertainment program.
Primeval.
Primeval.
Primeval clouds of gas form themselves into stars.
Primeval forests.
The primeval urge to reproduce.
Primeval.
Primitive.
Primitive.
A primitive society.
A primitive nomadic tribe.
The tools used by primitive man.
Primitive art.
The first station buildings were quite primitive.
The local hospital care is primitive and unreliable.
Conditions at the camp are very primitive.
A primitive steam engine.
Primitive life forms that live deep in the ocean.
A primitive single-celled creature.
The primitive instinct of survival.
Primitive desires.
Primogeniture.
Primogeniture.
Primordial.
Primordial.
The primordial seas. He was driven on by a primordial terror.
Primp.
Primp.
She spends hours primping in front of the mirror.
Primrose.
Primrose.
A bunch of primroses.
Primula.
Primula.
Primus.
Primus.
Prince.
Prince.
Prince William. Prince Rainier of Monaco.
The Prince of Sculptors. The Prince of Sculptors.
Prince Charles.
Prince Charles.
Prince consort.
Prince consort.
Princely.
Princely.
My savings had now reached the princely sum of £30.
A far from princely salary.
Princely buildings.
A princely welcome awaited them.
A princely state.
Princess.
Princess.
Princess Anne.
Principal.
Principal.
His principal reason for making the journey was to visit his family.
Teaching is her principal source of income.
The principal character in the book.
A small school with just 3 teachers and the principal. The principal of the business has an office in New York.
She later became a principal with the Royal Ballet.
Principal boy.
Principal boy.
Principality.
Principality.
Principally.
Principally.
The money is principally invested in stocks and shares.
He was principally a landscape painter. We met principally to discuss the future of the school.
Principal.
Principal.
Schools try to teach children a set of principles.
He's got no principles at all.
It's against my principles to accept gifts from clients. The general principle is that education should be available to all children up to the age of 16.
The basic principles of business management.
The principles of French law.
Reflexology is based on the principle that specific areas of the feet correspond to different parts of the body. The project worked on the principle that each person's experience was equally valuable.
The principles behind government policies.
He called for a return to first principles of road safety for children.
Similar principles apply in the case of older children.
In principle, the new software should make the accounting system a lot simpler.
They have accepted the idea in principle.
The government has agreed in principle to a referendum.
Archimedes' principle.
The basic principles of physics.
Principled.
Principled.
He took a principled stand against the legislation.
An attempt to reduce prison sentences in a principled way.
Print.
Print.
I need to make a few changes before I print the document. The company's name was printed in bold letters across the top of the page.
A printed letter.
The printer's switched on, but it won't print.
As a newspaper publisher, he understood the power of the printed word. As a newspaper publisher, he understood the power of the printed word.
Press return, then the document should print.
Over 5 million copies of the paper are printed every day.
When the book was first written, no publisher would print it.
The Express was the first paper to print the story.
The Telegraph has printed numerous articles on this subject over the last 3 years.
I wrote to the newspaper, but my letter wasn't printed.
It usually takes a couple of hours for the pictures to be developed and printed. A skirt printed with brightly coloured flowers.
A printed silk shirt.
Please print your name clearly in the top right-hand corner of the page.
The mark of the man's shoe was printed in the mud.
Could you print a copy off for me?
I'll print the file out and then we can look at it.
There was no print at all on the backs of the tickets. There was no print at all on the backs of the tickets. It must be really exciting to see your work in print.
The pleasure of seeing my name in print.
Very little of his poetry actually got into print.
After 50 years, the book is still in print.
The book is also available in large print.
The print quality of the new printer is excellent.
Always read the small print before signing anything.
His feet left deep prints in the soft soil.
The police found a set of prints on the car door.
A lovely selection of floral prints.
She was wearing a cotton print dress. Why don't you order an extra set of prints?
A colour print.
Printable.
Printable.
Her remarks were scarcely printable.
Printed circuit.
Printed circuit.
Printed matter.
Printed matter.
Printer.
Printer.
A laser printer.
A colour printer.
Printing.
Printing.
The invention of printing.
The printing industry.
A printing error.
The first printing of her book was 10,000 copies.
Printing ink.
Printing ink.
Printing press.
Printing press.
Print out.
Print out.
Print run.
Print run.
Prion.
Prion.
Prior.
Prior.
You do not need any prior knowledge of the subject.
Changes may not be made without the prior approval of the council. Vegetarian meals are provided by prior agreement. Some prior experience with the software is needed. The society must give customers prior notice before changing the cost. The bomb exploded without any prior warning.
All the arrangements should be completed prior to your departure.
His own children have a prior claim to the business.
Two priors for homicide.
Prioress.
Prioress.
Prioritize.
Prioritize.
You need to prioritize your tasks.
The public wants to see the fight against crime prioritized.
Priority.
Priority.
The club's priority is to win the league.
The children are our first priority.
After several burglaries in the area, security is now a high priority. With so little money available, repairs must remain a low priority. The customer is high on our list of priorities.
List your tasks in order of priority.
Buses should have priority over other road users.
A young person who has finished the course will be given priority over one who has not.
I want to start work on the garden, but the house must take priority. We need to get our priorities right. Members receive priority bookings and reduce ticket prices to all concerts.
Priory.
Priory.
The Priory.
The Priory.
Prize.
Prize.
I tried to prise the lid off.
I more or less had to prize it out of him.
Prism.
Prism.
Prismatic.
Prismatic.
A prismatic compass.
Prison.
Prison.
He visits his dad in prison every week.
Ricky has been out of prison for 3 years now.
They'll probably put him in prison for a long time. Helen was sent to prison for attacking a man with a knife.
The two men were arrested only a week after they were released from prison.
3 terrorists escaped from Brixton Prison.
An increase in the number of women going to prison.
Mr. Gunn received a 10-year prison sentence.
The prison service.
Does prison deter criminals from offending again?
The farm felt like a prison to her.
Prison camp.
Prison camp.
Prisoner of conscience.
Prisoner of conscience.
Prisoner of war.
Prisoner of war.
Prison visitor.
Prison visitor.
Prissy.
Prissy.
Pristine.
Pristine.
A pristine white shirt.
The car has been restored to pristine condition.
Pristine African rainforest.
Prithee.
Prithee.
Privacy.
Privacy.
With 7 people squashed in one house, you don't get much privacy.
Each individual's right to privacy.
Private.
Private.
Morris has a private jet.
He made some notes for his private use.
Many communists objected to any form of private property.
A private hospital.
There is private ownership of property in a market economy. Private education.
I need to have a private discussion with you.
Are you alone? I just wanted a private word.
Jack's private opinion was that she was selfish. Don't read that. It's private.
A private citizen.
The painting was sold to a private collector.
7 police and 3 private individuals needed medical attention.
The President is paying a private visit to Europe. He enjoys everything he does in both his professional and his private life.
Why don't we go upstairs where it's more private? Why don't we go upstairs where it's more private?
He's a very private man.
I need to speak to you in private.